These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remembering the good old days when we could hug and kiss. Back to gyms and restaurants and move through public settings. We'd give high fives and drink at dives, hold hands and dance at weddings. Now the days are longer, yet the darker in a way. We're pressing pause on normalcy, just going day by day. But we can still make jokes and art, garden, dance and sing. Cook, read books, try on fun looks and learn about new things. We can talk with friends of ours and have a heart to heart, just so long as we all stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical, so step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
Good evening. Welcome to 6 Feet Apart presents Once Upon an Open Mic, a traditional storytelling show. As most of you know, if you've been in our audience before or been on our show, we often do open mic story slams that are true personal tales. But tonight, it's just an open mic. It's not a competition, and it is all traditional tales. So thank you for coming. We're really excited about the storytellers that grabbed a spot. It's going to be a great show. Let's go ahead and take a look at those good-looking storytellers. We'll take a look at the backstage and see who is back there. There we all are. Yeah. And a shout out to the audience on YouTube. If you are so inclined as you're watching, please put some comments in the chat. It's always great for our storytellers to have that feedback. They will be able to go back afterwards and read all those lovely comments. So it really means a lot to all of us if you can comment and say who you are and where you're from, because we'd like to give a shout out to you as well. We hope you're somewhere snug and warm and dry and have a good beverage and a comfy blanket. So tonight, traditional stories. I have to say, I have to make a bit of a confession. When Claire and I started 6 Feet Apart in March of 2020, when everything just shut down, I had only experienced true personal storytelling shows, such as The Moth. And I really didn't know anything about traditional storytelling other than when I was little. Of course, I listened to kind of standard folk tales and fairy tales. And so my impression was that they were for kids. And I really didn't take them seriously, I'll be honest. And the first time we did a traditional show, it completely changed my opinion of traditional storytelling, and I was converted instantly and 100% behind doing these shows. A good story is a good story, and that's what I realized. And I really loved having gotten to know some traditional tellers and also having been able to bring traditional stories to the world. I want to read a quote. This was sent to us by one of our tellers, Linda Yamato. It's by Charles DeLint, but I think it's a great summation of traditional tales and why they're important. I'm going to read it because I don't want to skip any words. People who've never read fairy tales or folk tales have a harder time coping in life than people who have. They don't have access to all the lessons that can be learned from the journeys through dark woods and the kindness of strangers treated decently, the knowledge that can be gained from the company and example of donkey skins and cats wearing boots and steadfast tin soldiers. I'm not talking about in-your-face lessons, but more subtle ones, the kind of lessons that seep into your subconscious, that teach you how to prevail and to trust and maybe even love. So I love that quote. I think it's a wonderful way to express what traditional stories are. So we're happy that you're here tonight, audience members, whether you're a lover of traditional tales or someone who just decided to show up and thought, hey, I thought this was personal stories, but all right, I'll stick around. We are going to get the show started. We've got 10 tellers. Each one will be telling a story that's 5 to 6-ish minutes. We don't know what story they're going to tell, and we don't know what order they're going to tell. And if two of them happen to be telling the same tale, it's not a problem because each one will bring their own personality and their own essence and stamp on that story. So it will be a different story in spite of being the same story. So we are going to bring up our spinner, and we don't have our person from last month's show naming it. So the Sleeping Spinning Beauty. Let's see what sleeping. Gwendolyn Napier. We have Gwendolyn Napier who is going to, yay. Gwendolyn, this is the first time she's been on our show. I'm very excited that she is here, and she's making her way up to our stage, and we're very excited to hear her story. Gwendolyn, you're on stage. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, and good evening to all. The Gingerbread Man. Once there was a little old woman who loved her little old husband, her man. She had a hard-working husband, and he loved to eat gingerbread cookies. He worked very hard out in the field, and she decided, today I'm going to make my husband a gingerbread man. She took the dough, and she took all of the items on the counter. She took time to cut herself out several gingerbread men and women, and she put them in the oven to cook. Well, while they were baking in the oven, she decided to sit back in her rocking chair and take herself a little nap. Well, when she awakened by the aroma from the gingerbread cookies, she got up and she opened up the oven to allow the cookies to cool off. And as the others were cooling off, one little gingerbread man decided that he would pop up. He popped up out of the oven, and she looked at him and said, "Where are you going? Come back here, come back here." Oh, the little man looked at the old woman and said, oh woman, I am the gingerbread man, and I can run as fast as I can." The gingerbread man, he jumped off of the oven, he jumped onto the floor, and he took off running, and the old woman took off behind him, running as fast as she could. But she could not catch the gingerbread man. The gingerbread man approached the dog and said, "Hey, Mr. Dog, do you know who I am? I am a gingerbread man. I ran away from the little old woman, and I can run away from you too." And the gingerbread man took off running away from the dog, running. The old woman was running, and the dog was running, and then the gingerbread man met a pig. Mr. Pig, do you know who I am? I am the gingerbread man. I ran away from the old woman, I ran away from the dog, and I can run away from you. And off they went running as fast as they can. They could not catch him. Why? He was the gingerbread man. The gingerbread man kept running, and then he approached the cow. Mr. Cow, do you know who I am? They call me the gingerbread man. I ran away from the little old woman. I ran away from her husband, little old man. I ran away from the dog, the pig, and I can run away from you too. He started running faster and faster. And everyone behind was looking. He was running fast. Look at me, I'm running fast as I can. You can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man. Well, he finally ran into a fox. Oh, the fox was sitting right there waiting, because the gingerbread man wanted to cross over the river. The fox said, "Mr. Gingerbread Man, may I help you cross over the river?" Gingerbread man said, "You must think I'm crazy. You want me to get on your back to cross the river so you can eat up? Mr. Gingerbread Man, I'm a fox. I want to help you cross the river so you won't get soggy and wet." Well, the gingerbread man jumped on the back of the fox, and they started to cross over the river. And before they could reach the bank, the gingerbread man jumped off of the fox's back over his head and landed right on the soil. He said, look at me. I'm the gingerbread man. I ran away from the little old woman, the man, the dog, the pig, the cow, and doggone, Fox, I ran away from you. Don't you know who I am? I'm the gingerbread man. Run, run, run as fast as I can. You can't catch me. Why? I'm the gingerbread man. And that gingerbread man is still running, running, running fast today. No one has ever caught the gingerbread man. Now that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you. And thanks for starting the show off with such an energetic, fast-moving gingerbread man story. We appreciate that. I know you were like, I hope I'm not the first one up. Oops, surprise you are. So you can just sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the show without wondering if my name's going to come up next. You and the gingerbread man. All right, we're going to keep the show going. And I would like to have our tech guru go ahead and give a spin of the, let's see what I'm calling it this time, the jack and the fee-fi-fo-fum spinner drum. Let's see who's going to be next up. Sarah Armstrong. Sarah Armstrong is with us tonight. We're happy to have her, member of Storytelling Association of California. We're glad she could make it. And Sarah, welcome to our stage.
Thanks, Regina. Well, a number of years ago, when I was a classroom teacher and a new storyteller, I was invited to go to Seoul, Korea for an education conference. Now, at that time, it seemed like a great idea to prepare a Korean folktale to tell the Korean people. I don't know why, but that seemed like a good idea. So I did. So I'd like to share that story with you. Mr. Pak and Mr. Kim were neighbors. Mr. Pak was the kindest, most gentle, friendliest man you would ever encounter. He would help people with anything they needed help with. He smiled all the time, and he was just a very special, kind man. Now, Mr. Kim, on the other hand, not so much. He was mean, he was greedy. I don't even think that the muscles on his face knew how to move into a smile. Now, Mr. Pak had a persimmon tree next to his house that wasn't doing well. And in Korea, as in China and here and other places, persimmons are just delicious and lovely. And in fact, in Korea, they talk about being the gem of the season. So Mr. Pak decided that he would try one more time to bring this persimmon tree back to life. So he fed it and he watered it and he talked to it and he sang to it and he danced around that. And if you can believe it, that tree started to respond. Pretty soon it grew new branches and leaves and buds and fruit. And it was soon filled with fruit, large persimmons. In fact, one was just huge. Well, Mr. Pak shared that bounty with all his friends and neighbors and decided to take that largest persimmon to the king as a tribute, which is something they often did. Mr. Pak went down to the kingdom, presented it to the king, who knew the reputation of this kind man, and he was very appreciative of the gift that he had been given. So he said to his advisors, please go to the treasury and look and find the biggest thing we have to give to Mr. Pak as a thank you for the persimmon that he brought us. Well, the advisors were gone for quite a while and looked high and looked low and finally came back to the king and whispered into his ear. And the king said, that's fine. That would be fine. So the advisors brought a huge gold nugget as a gift to Mr. Pak. He was thrilled and very humbled and headed on home. And good news travels fast. And Everyone was thrilled that this kind, wonderful man had been given such a gift by the king. Everyone except Mr. Kim, who was the teensiest bit jealous, or a lot jealous. And he thought, if Mr. Pock could get such a treasure from a persimmon, if I brought something bigger, probably my reward will be bigger. Now, I learned that there's a saying in Korea about a man lying underneath a persimmon tree with his mouth open, expecting the fruit to fall, indicating a lazy person who isn't going to do the work that needs to be done. Well, Mr. Kim didn't make anything or bake anything or grow anything, but he sold everything he knew he had and bought an ox, a big, strong ox. He kind of dusted it off and took it down to the king, who was again thankful for the tribute that had been brought, and again asked his advisors to go into the treasury to see what they could find to bring to give to Mr. Kim to thank him. And you probably won't be surprised to realize that that's how Mr. Kim came to own the largest persimmon anybody had seen in those parts. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah, for that story. Korean folktale about persimmon. And I think that's great because I don't think persimmons get enough credit in the fruit and vegetable world. I don't think a lot of people, I get them confused with pomegranates, and I'm never quite sure what I'm even supposed to do with a persimmon. So thank you for elevating the persimmon and giving it some love. We're going to keep it going tonight. This is great. I'm really enjoying these stories, and we are going to Tech Guru, I'm going to have you spin the Hansel and Gretel go round. Let's see what Hansel and Gretel, whose name they pull out of the oven this time. Claire Nelson, Dr. Claire Nelson, we are bringing you up to the stage. We have not had the pleasure of hearing you tell, so I'm very excited to have you here at the 6 Feet Apart community. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to our stage. There you go. I believe you're still muted, Dr. Nelson. We've been doing this how long on Zoom, and all of us still have this happen. The old
Am I still muted?
There you go. You're there. We can hear you.
Okay. From the Shanti people of Ghana, Anansi Sem. Ha! Quick crack. Well, time has it to tell that Anansi had 6 children, and they were named after what they could do best. So one was Troubleseer, one was Road Builder, then you had Water Drinker, Game Skinner, Stone Thrower, and the last little baby named Cushion. Well, Anansi was walking about boasting to his animal friends that, he and Nyame, the creator, had become so close that he could actually think about what Anansi, the creator, was thinking before he even thought of himself. Well, the creator was hearing this and said, I'm going to give Anansi a test. So he called him, Anansi, tell you what, I want you to go and fetch me that thing and bring it to me. What was that thing? Well, Anansi thought he'd show them. So he called his children and said, I'm going off to look for that thing. So Anansi set off across the land, across forest, across mountain, across hill, across dale. And he was gone for a long time. Quick crack, he was gone for a long time. So the children started to wonder, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, no sign of Anansi. And they started to worry. What had happened to their father? Well, Troubleseer said, I bet you he's in trouble. Let me climb up on a tree and look and see if I can find him. So he looked, and far, far, far away, he saw Anansi hanging from a tree, from a cliff. Well, they said, let us go find him. So Road Builder said, I'd lead the way. So Road Builder set off, and they began to follow Road Builder across hill and valley and dale. But then They came across this thick, thick forest where there was no road. So road was built in the center, hash, slap, popped his way through till they found Nancy. But just as they were going to rescue him, splash, he fell in the river below. What to do? A big red fish swallowed him up whole. Ah! So water drinker said, never fear, I am here. Water drinker started to drink all that water. And then finally the fish was there flopping. And they said, hey, and Nancy, Game Skinner said, all right, I've got to get him out of that fish. Slash. Game Skinner cut that fish and there was a Nancy. Finally, saved at last. And all the children were singing, le, 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 and Nancy was saved. Or so they thought, because a big old eagle was flying over and saw this scrumptious looking Nancy and swooped down and picked him up and flew up high into the sky did he fly. Crick, crack, what do you think happened? Well, Stone Thrower said, don't worry, never fear, I am here. So Stone Thrower got a big, nice polished stone and threw that stone so high up that it go, hit that eagle right in his colors, and Nancy fell, tumbling down. What could happen to Nancy? He's screaming. Cushion said, I'll go save him. I won't have my father die. And Pincushion waddled as fast as he could and landed right where Nancy would fall. So instead of going splat, Pincushion allowed him to land squish. And Nancy was saved. And the children were so happy. And they set off walking home. They were so happy. And Nancy was thinking, I've got to reward my children for their good deeds. But what to do? What to do? Crick, crack, what to do? Well, as he was walking home, he kept on thinking. He thought about giving them the best chocolate. No, the best mangoes. No, the best sugar cane. Well, that night he was out walking and he saw this big bright light under a tree. What a pretty light, he said. This light was called the moon. He said, I'm going to give it to one of my children, the one who did the most work. So he called him and said, children, I'll give this to the one who did the most work. But who shall it be? Well, an argument began to ensue. It was me. It was I. No, not you, no, not I. And all day, all night, they were arguing as to who had done the most work to save Nancy's life. Well, Nyami by this time had come to sit and watch this thing. And Nancy said, you know what, Nyami, you hold this thing. Well, after waiting, Nyami couldn't wait. He went back up to the sky and hung that bright blue light right up in the sky. And that is where the moon hangs until today, where it is seen by some people a quarter, a half, a quarter, or a whole at a time. Crick, crack, wire bend, story end, and now the story is on you, my friend. Crick, crack.
Thank you so much. Wow, the energy that you tellers are bringing to the show. I love it. Love your background. Great add to that story. Very energetic story. Thank you so much for that, Claire. Lovely to have you on the show. I want to give a shout out to a few folks that are watching on YouTube. Katie from Boston. We've got Michelle from Vermont, so we're all over the place. Patricia from Davidson, North Carolina. Kathy from Castro Valley, a little closer to where we're at in Northern California. And Katie from Minneapolis is with us as well. So thanks so much. Enjoy reading your comments in the chat. So let's keep our story going and let's spin the Puss in Boots Barrel of Stories. The Puss in Boots Barrel of Story, O-Matic. That's what we're going to spin this time and see who is going to be coming up to tell us story. Who's bringing their energy to the stage? It's Linda Yamamoto. Thank you so much. She's here and she's going to make her way to the stage. You know, it's a long walk through the aisles, up the steps till you get onto the stage. And then there you are. Linda, there you are.
Long walk, I tell you. It is said that Mullah Nasruddin was a Sufi wise man, a sage who lived in the 13th century. Some say he was born in Turkey. Others say, no, Iran, no, Afghanistan. There are many countries who like to claim him. And there are thousands of stories about Nasruddin, and they're told from Turkey to China, from Siberia to India. And here is one of them. Nasruddin made his living by giving religious talks, but he never made a lot of money. And at one point he was in great financial difficulties. He decided he had to sell his ancestral home. Now, Qasim, his neighbor, heard about this and thought he might be able to take advantage of the situation. Nasruddin, my friend, I hear you are selling your ancestral home. Yes, I must. Well, not to worry. I want to help you. I want to buy your home, even though I have little interest in it. And he offered Nasruddin half of what the home was actually worth. But Nasruddin seemed to be pleased with the offer. Yes, I will sell my home to you for that price, but first, we must take a look at this clause in the contract. Clause? Yes, do you see that nail sticking out of my living room wall? Yes. Well, that was the last nail that my father was nailing in as he built this house, but he was not able to finish. He died of a heart attack. Oh, may God rest his soul. So you can see why that nail is so precious to me. I want to keep possession of that nail and do with it as I wish. I will have to ask my wife. So Qasim went home and told his wife about the contract and the clause. Nail? What does he want with some nail? Oh, it's nothing, my dear. He just wants to come and visit the nail from time to time. And so the contract was signed. Nasruddin moved out. Qasim and his wife moved in. And nothing happened for about a month. And then there was a knock on the door. Nasruddin, my friend, I've been expecting you. Nasruddin went straight to the nail, gave a prayer, took off his hat, hung it on the nail. Nasruddin, what are you doing? It is my nail. I may do with it as I wish. And he left. About 2 weeks later, he returned. Nasruddin, I assume you've come to get your hat? No. He went to the nail, gave a prayer, took off his scarf, hung it on the nail, and then he left. Well, about a week later, he returned. Nasruddin, you again. Nasruddin went over to the nail, gave a prayer, took off his coat, hung it on the nail. Nasruddin, you cannot turn this house into a coat rack. It is my nail. I may do with it as I wish. And he left. Well, the wife was furious. What is he doing? He is taking advantage of our kindness. No, he's taking advantage of our weakness. I knew this would happen. Oh, dear, it is all right. Look, the nail is full. He cannot hang anything more on the nail. Well, 2 days later, he returned. Nasruddin, I hope this is the last time. Nasruddin came in pulling a heavy rope. Possibly. And he pulled and pulled. And at the end of the rope was a dead cow. He wrapped the rope around the nail and he was about to leave. Nasruddin, you cannot do this. It is my nail. I may do with it as I wish. We shall see about this. I am going to call the Council of Elders. The next morning, the Council of Elders met. Qasim and his wife told them about the nail and the hat and the scarf and the coat and the dead cow. Nasruddin simply pulled out the contract, showed them the clause. And when they read it, Nasruddin is correct. He owns the nail. He may do with it as he wishes. Nasruddin, please buy your house back from me. I cannot sell it like this, and we cannot live like this. And so Nasruddin offered half of what he was paid for the house. Qasim and his wife moved out. Nasruddin moved back in. And once again, he could enjoy his hat, his scarf, his coat, and his nail.
Yay. Wonderful. Wonderful, Linda. Thank you so much for that story about a particular nail and some dubious real estate practices. Everyone on YouTube's making some comments. We appreciate that. Thanks so much. And loving again the energy. This is great. Everybody is just going to town on these stories. It's wonderful. It's like speed dating, only it's speed traditional stories. We are going to spin it again. Let's go with the Little Red Riding Round and Round. Little Red Riding Hood round and round, and see where we land, see who our next teller is that we're going to bring up to the stage. This is very fun. And it's Judy Twarowski. Judy, yay. We're happy to have you. Let you give a few seconds to get yourself up to the stage. As Linda said, such a long walk up to the stage, and there you are. Lovely. Take it away.
Thank you. How Dog became man's best friend. Dog was lonely, so he went out into the wide world to try to find a friend. And the first entity he met was Rabbit. Oh, please, please, won't you be my friend, Rabbit? Please? Why should I be friends with you? Rabbit said. Well, we can have a good time together, Dog said. All right, Rabbit said, I'll give it a try. Well, they did have a good time. They ran up the mountain together, and they ran back down the mountain. They ran around the lake one way, and they ran around the lake the other way. But then they were very tired. So Dog and Rabbit curled up together and fell asleep until Dog heard a noise. And Rabbit awoke and said, quiet, quiet, stop making that racket. But why? Dog said, that's what I do. I try to protect my friends. Oh, you're making all that noise, Rabbit said. Wolf is out there, and he'll hear you, and he'll come here and eat us. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, Dog said. Well, the next day, Dog went out into the world again to find a friend. And who should he meet but Wolf? Oh, please, Wolf, please, can we be friends? Why should I be friends with you? Well, Dog said, you're Canis lupus, and I'm Canis lupus familiara. We can be great friends. All right, Wolf said, I'll give it a go. Well, they did have a good day. They ran up the mountain together. They ran down the mountain together. They ran around the lake. They swam across the lake. Dog did the doggy paddle. And then they were very tired. So they turned around 3 times, curled up together, and fell asleep until Dog heard a noise. And Wolf woke up and said, shh, be quiet, stop that racket. But why? Dog said, that's what I do. I try to protect my friends. Oh, with you barking like that, Bear is out there. He'll hear you, and he'll come here and eat us. Oh, I don't want that to happen, Dog said. I'm sorry. So the next day, Dog went out into the world again to try to find a friend. And who should he meet but Bear? Oh, please, Bear, please, please, can we be friends? Why should I be friends with you? Well, we can go up the mountain together, and you can go over the mountain to see what you can see. And you're a bear. You'll know where all the honey trees are. We can have some good snacks. Oh, please. All right, Bear said, I'll give it a go. Well, they did have a good day together. They ran up the mountain and they went over the mountain. Bear couldn't see a thing. They came back down and Bear did find a honey tree, so they had some good snacks. Then they were tired, so they curled up together and fell asleep until Dog heard a noise. Bear woke up and says, "Shh, be quiet with that barking." "But why?" Dog said. "I'm just trying to protect my friends." "Oh," Bear said, "with you barking like that, man is out there. He's going to hear you and he's going to come here and hurt us." "Oh, I'm sorry," Dog said. I didn't know." Well, the next day, Dog went out looking again and he met Man. And he went up to Man. He said, "Oh, Man, could we be friends, please?" Man said, "Oh, yes, this is great. We can go hunting together. Come on, let's go hunting." So with Man and Dog working together, they had a very good supper that night. And their tummies were full, so they were tired, so they curled up together and fell asleep until Dog heard a noise. And Man woke up and he said, what is it, boy? What is it?" You're not going to yell at me? You're not going to tell me to stop barking?" "No, this is great," Man said. "Why, with you barking like that, why, Rabbit won't come into my garden and eat my vegetables, and Wolf won't come after my sheep, and Bear wouldn't dare attack us. Why, we can be best friends." And so it was, and so it is. And that's why, from back then to this day and onward, Dog became Man's best friend. The end.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you so much. Always wondered the origins of that man's best friend. And yeah, our dog, we have a dog that's very protective. There's nobody in the neighborhood that can bring out their garbage can without us knowing about it. So she's really on top of a lot of those things. Very important. All right. And we are going to spin it again. And that's going to be the Snow White Whirl-O-Matic. Let's get the Snow White Whirl-O-Matic going and see what name is going to show up for us this time. This is great. All of these stories have just been wonderful. And Neshama Franklin, I know Neshama has been having a little bit of technical difficulty, so I'm not sure she's going to be able to come up to our stage, or we might have audio on Neshama and we might not have a visual. Or we may have Neshama come back at another time. Let's see what happens here. What do you think, Claire Hennessy? I'm talking to my co-producer. Another one? Okay, I think we're going to spin again. We don't have Neshama, so let's spin it again. Our tech guru. Let's see what other creative name I can come up with. Neshama lives out in kind of in the outlands. She lives out in the middle of nowhere in a beautiful place, but a beautiful place without a lot of good internet. So Walt Belcher is going to be our next teller. And thanks so much. Make your way to the stage and we'll hear what Walt has to say. Welcome back to our show, Walt. Lovely to have you here.
Great to be here. Great.
And there he is. Okay, wonderful.
All right. I'm going to tell my version of an Aesop fable. And this is going to take place in the Carolina Mountains, where I'm from, the Appalachia. And up there in the mountains, there was a father named Jack and his son, Jack Jr. And the son was almost grown. He was the spitting image of his father, although why these images would spit at each other is another story. But their mule up and died. They needed a mule because the ground was too rocky to use a tractor. And the mule, they could plow and grow corn, and they used the corn to make, well, moonshine. But without the mule, they couldn't do it. But they heard that down in the valley, in the town, there was a fellow who had a donkey for sale. Now a donkey is not the same thing as a mule. It's a little bit scrawnier and skinny, and it's not as big, but it may be just as tough. And it was only $5. So they went down there and they bought it, and they were leading it back up the mountain. They come around the bend, going to pass the First Emmanuel Baptist Church, and out sitting on the lawn under the tree is Pastor Ludlow Bean, and he's practicing his Sunday sermon. He's about to say, "Give me another amen," when he sees Jack and Jack Jr. walking up the road with that donkey. He says, "Gentlemen, that's from the Bible. That's an I. That's a I." He couldn't say the word ASS because, well, he was an evangelical preacher and he just didn't say words like that, even though it's in the Bible. He said, "You should honor that beast. One of you should be riding it in the memory of Jesus. One of you should ride that donkey." And Jack Jr. and Jack Sr. look at each other, and Jack Sr. says, "Jack, you get up on there. I don't want to be in one of his sermons, you know. We better just do that because, you know, he might put us in one of his sermons." So Jack Jr. gets up there and Jack Sr. leads the donkey, and they walk on down the road a little bit further, and they pass Mrs. Honeycutt's house. And Mrs. Honeycutt's out in the yard, and she's a school teacher. And she looks at him and she says, "Jack Jr., you should be ashamed of yourself. You're riding on that donkey while your poor father's walking. That's not what you should do. Where's your manners, boy? Get down off of there and let your father ride." Jack Jr. and Jack Sr. look at each other. They say, "Well, you know, we better do this because," well, Jack Jr. hadn't really graduated from high school, even though he was 22 years old. And she said, "We don't want to make her mad." So Jack Jr. gets off and Jack Sr. gets on, and they walk on down the road just a little bit further, and they're passing the No Name Saloon. And out in front of the No Name Saloon under a tree are the Johnson brothers. Now, there's three mean guys in overalls and beards, and they like to make fun of people. They're bullies, and they start laughing. "Oh, you look at these two fool guys. One of you's walking and one of you's riding. You know that's a burro. That's an animal they use out west that miners use that can carry a heavy load. Both of you should be riding that, you foolish characters. Well, we're going to tell everybody what kind of crazy guys you are, not riding both of you up there." Well, Jack and Jack Jr. look at each other and they say, "Well, you know, he's right. We don't want them laughing at us and talking about us. I'm going to get up there with you, Jack Jr." So they're both riding the donkey. And they go just a little bit further down the road and they pass Mrs. Peabody. And Mrs. Peabody's out in her yard, and she's an animal lover, and she's got ducks and chickens and birds and all kinds of things, and she's feeding them. And she looks up and says, Gentlemen, you should be ashamed of yourself. Both of you riding on the back of that poor little animal. That poor critter's, he's just barely walking there, and you must weigh a ton. You know what? You should be carrying it. Both of you should carry that yourselves instead of making that poor animal carry you." Jack and Jack Jr. look at each other. "Well, how can we do that, Jack?" "Oh, look, there's a sapling over there, straight up tree. I'll go over there and cut it with my knife, and we'll take that donkey and we'll tie his feet up, and I'll get in the front and hold the front end of the pole. You get in the back and hold the back end of the pole, and we can carry it." Of course, the donkey's not too happy about this. He starts, he doesn't like it. And they're going down the road just a little bit further. Only got one bridge to cross before they get home. And Jack Jr. is about to step up on that bridge, and the donkey kicks him in the back, and it gets loose, goes over the side of the bridge and runs off, and they never see it again. And the moral of this story, because every Aesop's fable has a moral, if you try to please everybody, you'll wind up losing your donkey.
Oh my gosh.
You like that?
Oh, well, that was great. That was wonderful. The stories tonight are just awesome. I just am so excited. They've just been great. They've been punchy. There've been great vocals and visuals, and wow, it's certainly not boring at all. It's very entertaining, and this is why I love traditional tales, because of all the embellishments that can be done, and it's just wonderful. You're all bringing it tonight. So let's see who's gonna be the next teller with the Rapunzel. Give us a name. Omatic. I always like to add Omatic to it, but let's see who else is gonna come up to the stage and tell a tale. Jane Dorfman. Jane is with us tonight. Excellent. Wonderful. We'll let Jane make her way up to the stage. She has been with us before. Happy to have her back. Thank you for being here. Looking forward to hearing your tale. So take it away, Jane.
Thank you. This is one of the grimmer grims. This is called Three Snake Leaves. There was once a young man who lived with his father, and he was so poor there was not enough food for both of them. So the young man said, I'm going to go take service with the king as a soldier. And he went and he fought really well, and he wasn't like the other mercenaries. He rallied the troops. He saved the day. He saved the battle and the kingdom. And the king was so appreciative, he had him brought to the palace. Now, it was at the palace that he saw the princess. She was very beautiful, but odd. She had sworn she would not marry a man who did not swear that if she died before he did, he would be buried in the tomb with her. And she said she would do the same, for if you truly love someone, why would you want to live on after them? Now, the young man had fallen in love, or something close to it. And he said, well, you know, women usually live longer than men, so I am safe. So they married, and they were so happy for a while. But then the princess took ill, and no one could cure her, and she died. And in his grief, the king was very sorry, but he told the young man that he had signed this. He had pledged that he would be buried with the princess, and buried he would be. Her body was laid out on a marble slab in the tomb, and the gates were closed, and the young man was given 3 candles, 3 loaves of bread, and 3 bottles of wine. So he was down to his last candle, and weak, when he saw a snake come in through a crack in the wall. He said, oh, you shall not have her body. And he pulled out his sword, and he chopped the snake into 3 pieces. And then a second snake came out, took a look at its comrade, and went back in and came out with 3 leaves in its mouth. It put 1 on the head of the snake, 1 on the body, and 1 on the tail, and the snake gave a little shiver and came back to life, and they both left through that crack. Now the young man picked up the 3 leaves. He thought, I have nothing to lose. He put 1 on his wife's lips, 1 on her chest, 1 on her belly, and she took a breath, and color came back to her face. Oh, and he gave her the sip of wine, his last sip, and a bite of bread, and they made so much noise that the guards came and released them. And the king was overjoyed to have his daughter back. But she was cold towards her husband, perhaps because she had been in the grave so long. And this husband thought, perhaps a sea voyage. We will go visit my father. So a ship was fitted out, a small ship. And only the young man, the princess, and the young man's loyal servant, to whom he had given the 3 snake leaves to keep safe, and a man to captain the ship. But while they were on the ship, the princess conceived a great love for the captain, and the servant heard them plotting that they would drug the young man, throw him over the side, and then claim that he died, and they would go back to the castle together. Now, the servant dared not challenge the princess, but when he heard the body splash into the water, he quickly got the lifeboat. He pulled his master in. He got out those 3 leaves, lips, chest, belly, and his master came back to life. And they rowed as quickly as they could back to the palace. Now, the king could not believe his daughter capable of this. But he hid the 2 men behind a curtain because he saw on the horizon the ship they had left in. And she came in weeping, leaning on the arm of the captain and saying, oh, father, my husband died. We had to bury him at sea. I would have thrown myself over the side, except for the captain here who saved me. He worked wonders. Said the king, I too can work wonders. And he pulled aside the curtain, and there was the husband and the servant. Now his daughter fell to her knees, weeping and begging for forgiveness. But her father said, no, this was your husband. He was willing to be buried with you. He brought you back to life, and you tried to murder him. He had his daughter and the captain put back into the ship. He had holes punched all across the hull. The ship towed way out to sea, where it spun around 3 times and went down. And that is the story of the 3 snake leaves. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much. The three snake leaves. I had not heard that story before. Thank you very much for that. And the fans are loving it on YouTube. The gestures, the noise, the sound, it's all just making for very rich, wonderful stories. So we are going to keep the evening going with the Beauty and the Beast barrel of stories. Let's get that one going. Beauty and the Beast barrel of stories. We'll spin and we'll see who's going to be our next teller on our virtual stage. Julie Bradshaw. Julie is here with us tonight. Lovely to have you here, Julie. Look forward to hearing your tale. Julie has done our open mics, but this is the first traditional story I've heard her tell. So take it away, Julie.
Thank you. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a king and queen. They had a newborn daughter named Melisande and were very happy. One day, in a land dispute between two women, the queen issued a ruling that one of the women did not like. Unbeknown to the queen, that woman was an evil witch. Furious, the evil witch cast a spell of great forgetting on the king, queen, and their baby daughter, Princess Melisande. This was so that the king and queen, as well as anyone in the kingdom, lost any idea of who the king, queen, and princess really were. In addition, the evil witch put out a second spell, which went out over the land. And this second spell made it so that anyone who remembered who the king, queen, and princess really were and tried to tell them would be immediately turned into a frog. The next morning, the king and queen woke in a small cottage. They were now farmers and had to work very hard. Yet, they were happy because they had each other as well as their beloved daughter. Melisande grew into a beautiful young woman, yet she struggled with feeling like she did not belong in the farming village where they lived. One day, a group of traveling musicians came to the village. Enchanted by the harp player, Melisande begged her parents to let her play the harp. "What do you need to learn how to play the harp for? Only traveling musicians and royalty play the harp. You don't want to become a traveling musician, going from town to town, eking out an existence. And you certainly aren't royalty." But Melisande begged her parents, and so they finally relented and bought her a harp. She took lessons from the traveling harp player and discovered that she was a natural. Knowing that her parents did not want her to be a traveling musician, she waited until one night after they had fallen asleep. Then she packed her meager belongings, including her harp, and set out. Several weeks into her adventures, she came to a pond where she saw the biggest frog she had ever seen. "Hello, Your Highness," said the frog. "Your Highness," replied Melisande, "I'm not royalty." But you see, the frog had a special talent. He knew the truth of who anyone really was. As for the spell that would turn anyone who told the king, queen, or princess the truth of who they were and would turn them into a frog, well, he was already a frog, so it didn't affect him. "My apologies," said the frog. "May I offer you a piece of advice?" "Yes, please," replied Melisande. "I sense that you are seeking your true place in life. In order to find your true place, you will need the spell of great remembering." "And how do I find this spell?" "There is a grandmother who sells trinkets on the side of the road. Find her, and she will help you." So Melisande continued her travels. One day, she came across an old woman selling trinkets on the side of the road. "Grandmother, do you have a spell of great remembering?" The old woman replied, No, child, but I have a song of great remembering. I will teach it to you if you like, for I've been told it can be used to invoke a spell. And so Melisande learned to play the song, thanking the old woman. She went to a tree where she sat down and started to play the song on her harp. To her amazement, a fog came up around her. Growing sleepy, she fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up, she knew that something had changed, but she didn't know quite what. She decided to walk back to her village, for she missed her parents and wanted to see them again. As she walked, she came to the pond with the large frog. "Hello, Your Highness," said the frog. "Hello," replied Melisande. "Can you tell me who I really am?" "Yes, Your Highness. You are a princess who until now did not know that she was a princess." And in that moment, as tears streamed down her face, Melisande knew that the frog was telling the truth. No wonder she had felt like she didn't belong. She had been living a lie caused by the spell of great forgetting. Melisande thanked the frog and invited him to come live with her and her parents in their castle. The frog accepted. She scooped him up, and together they went back to the farming village, where she played the song of great remembering for her parents. As she played, a fog enveloped them, and they fell into a deep sleep. When they woke up, they remembered they were the king and queen. The king and queen, Princess Melisande, and Sir Frog, for of course they knighted him for his efforts in helping them, returned to the castle, and they all lived happily ever after. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Julie. I need to know the song of great remembering so that when I go from one room to the other room and I'm like, why did I come in here? I would like to be able to sing that song and remember, why am I here? That would be helpful. I could use that magic. So thank you very much. All right. We are getting close to the end. Neshama is back with us. She's going to tell at the end, we're going to put her in there, and we're glad that she was able to magically come back to us. But next we are gonna, I don't know if we're gonna spin or not, because I believe we know who the next teller is. Yes, it's Sarah Beth Nelson, but if we had spun, it would have been the Cinderella glass slipper spinner. Okay, I named it every time, so I got to get that out there. So Sarah's been with us before. We're happy to have you back, Sarah, to tell a traditional tale. Welcome to the 6 Feet Apart stage.
Once, long ago, a young woman named Orithyia was walking along the banks of the river Ilissus, which flows through Athens, Greece. And she disappeared. She was never seen or heard from again. I suppose she could have just fallen into the river and been washed away. That is probably the most likely explanation for her disappearance. But they say that Orithyia was married to Boreas, the god of the cold north wind. They say that Boreas and Orithyia were the parents of the winged twins Zetes and Calais. And they say that Boreas had a soft spot in his heart for Athens because his wife was an Athenian. So I think that perhaps on that day, Boreas was flying overhead. He looked down and saw this beautiful young woman, and as so often happens in these stories, he fell in love with her. He wanted to take her away with him. Boreas flew down to Orithyia, and at first he tried to win her over with kind and gentle words. Orithyia, if you were to, I don't know, marry me, you could fly with me through the skies. But Orithyia was not impressed. Boreas tried again. Orithyia, if you were to marry me, you could sleep every night on a bed of downiest cloud. Orithyia, if you were to marry me, I could carve ice sculptures of you that would forever preserve your beauty. Boreas was a stormy god. He was not accustomed to kind and gentle words. His motto was, dramatic actions are the wine of life. And so when Orithyia ignored him, he threw a god-sized temper tantrum. First, he flew up into the sky. He reached across the heavens and he pulled the clouds together into one solid sheet. The gods could have stepped off of Mount Olympus and walked clear across the sky. Boreas squeezed the clouds until they turned gray and a light rain began to fall. He squeezed the clouds until they turned black. Lightning crashed, thunder rumbled, hailstones pelted the ground below. Boreas flew back to Orithyia. He had a little tuft of cloud stuck in his beard. I make it rain, Orithyia. Marry me. Next, Boreas flew out over the ocean. He tapped the surface of the waves, and they rose higher and higher and higher until the crests of the waves reached all the way up to the sky, where the spray sizzled against the sun, and it flickered as if it might go out. The troughs of the waves cut down to the tawny seafloor below, and little creatures skittered to get back into the water. Boreas returned to Orithyia. He had a squid sliding down the side of his face. I move the sea, Orithyia. Marry me. Next, Boreas flew out across the land, pulling up 300-year-old oak trees as he went and throwing them back into the ground upside down. He whistled through canyons, setting the earth humming with a keening lament. He flew back to Orithyia. His hair was mussed. He had tree bark beneath his fingernails. I am the wind, Orithyia. Marry me. Boreas flew up into the sky. Once again, he took on his full godly form. His wings stretched across the heavens, blacking out the sun. He looked down at Orithyia. He had run out of dramatic actions. He flew back down to her, took on his human form again, and dropped to his knees. Orithyia, I can do all of these things, but without you, I am nothing. Please, will you marry me? All you had to do was ask. And so Orithyia agreed to go away with Boreas to the north, where they were married. Now, on that day, long ago, as Orithyia was walking along the banks of the river Ilissus and she disappeared, perhaps she simply fell into the water and was washed away. I suppose that is the most likely explanation for her disappearance. But I like to think that she tamed the wind. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah Beth. Thank you very much. These stories, I love just that they are all so different, and we haven't had any repeats at all. And not that it would have mattered, because you're all doing a wonderful job of giving everything your own personal stamp. And I love that. This has just been super great. I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we do this year. All right, we have one final teller. Neshama is back. So 3 Billy Goats Gruff, give us a name, and the name is Neshama. Franklin, lovely to have you back. Neshama, I know it took a little effort to get here, but there you are. There is your bright, shiny face. So
all my systems are going wonko. But let me see. My ring light has crashed. Oh man.
All of my systems are going wanky too. It's just because I've reached a certain age, and at a certain age, your systems just start kind of going with technical difficulties, right? You know, where am I? Why am I here?
That's as
that's
good
beautiful. We can see you. We can hear you. You look lovely, Neshama. So
it's a miracle. Okay.
Take a deep breath and take it away.
So there were 2 farmers. They were neighbors. There was a fence between them. And like in Linda's story, there was a good farmer and a bad farmer. Now, they both were fine farmers. They grew plenty of good stuff. The good farmer, he was relaxed, he was generous, he loved his life. The bad farmer, he was suspicious and greedy and envious. And he was always watching over the fence to see what the other farmer was up to. And to his surprise, he saw the good farmer stoop down and pick up something. What do you have there? A bird? It's too small to eat. No, said the good farmer. This bird has an injured wing, and I'm going to take him home and hope he'll get better. And what a waste of time, said the bad farmer. So the good farmer took this bird home and put him in a shoebox padded with his mother's handkerchief, and gave him water and gave him seeds and kind of bound up the wing. And in time, the bird got better and started flapping a little, was ready to fly off. And there was the farmer with this bird on his palm. And just before the bird flew off, he turned to face the farmer and talked to him. Out of his beak came a voice just like mine. And he said, because you've been so good to me, I'm going to give you a reward. And out of his beak came a little seed, looked like a pumpkin seed. Farmers love seeds. And so off flew the bird, and the farmer dug the hole and planted the seed. And then he watched and he waited and he watered and he weeded. And sure enough, out came 2 fuzzy little leaves. He thought maybe it was a melon, because he loved melons. And that vine, it grew with great vigor. It sprawled all through the rest of his crops. And that bad farmer said, what a mess that thing is. That looks like a weed. Well, I hope it's melons, said the good farmer. I just love melons. And the flowers formed, and then the melons grew and grew and grew. And there was the farmer with his machete. He was ready. Oh, he was so eager to taste this delicious gift of melon. And he cut into the first melon, and inside were gold coins. And the second melon, silver coins. And the third, emeralds. And the fourth, rubies. Oh, the good farmer was now very rich. Oh, the bad farmer was watching all this. He said, how did you do? What did you do? How did you? Well, the injured bird, he got better. He gave me the seed. I need an injured bird. And he looked around. He couldn't find one. He took out his slingshot. And he hit the bird in the wing, and he picked him up. And he said, you're going to get better, and then I'm going to get my reward, right? And he was not that gentle with the bird. Sure, he fed him. He didn't want him to croak on him. But the bird, tincture of time, the bird got better. And there was that farmer with the bird on his palm. And he said, okay, am I going to get it? Am I going to get it? And the bird turned to him and spoke to him out of his beak, just like I was speaking to you. Yes, you will get your just reward. And out of his beak came a little seed, looked like just like a melon seed. And oh, the bad farmer was so eager. He'd already dug the hole. And in it, he put the seed, and he watched and he waited and he weeded and he watered, and 2 fuzzy little green leaves came up, and the vine started to grow, but it did not sprawl. It just grew up and up and up and up. And the farmer really liked that because it was so neat. But he wondered how he was going to pick the melons, and he watched it go up, 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 very, very straight and very, very far. It seemed to, touch the moon. He said, well, maybe this is my invitation. I will climb that vine, and on the moon there will be gold coins, silver. Oh, they'll be waiting for me. And he started to climb and climb. It was a very, very, very long climb. And he got to the moon, and he stood on the moon. And what did he see? A lot of gray rock. There were no melons anywhere. And then he said, what a waste of time. I'm going to go home. He looked down. There was no longer any vine there. He's still up there. You see that? See that face? That's the bad farmer. The good farmer, however, in his generosity, spread his wealth, and he also got a really good crop of melons the very next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Neshama. I'm so glad you were able to have enough Wi-Fi to get that story told. Thank you so very, very much. What a wonderful evening. That was our last teller. We are going to bring each teller back just so we can say a wave to them and thank them. And we are going to bring them back in reverse order, just because that's how we do it. So, of course, we just had Neshama, a vigorous vine. I love that. A vine grew with vigor. I thought that was great. So Neshama, thank you so much for being with us. And before Neshama, we had Sarah Beth Nelson. Orathaya, she was not easily impressed. She just needed a guy to ask. Just ask. Don't have to show me bright, shiny things. Come on, men, figure it out. We just want a little romance. And then we had before that, Julie Bradshaw, Millicent the harp, and a princess that forgot she was one, so she needed that song of remembering. And before that, we had Jane Dorfman. We had a comment in YouTube that everybody thought that was quite the salty tale from you, Jane. So thank you for that. 3 snake leaves, told very well. Thank you. And then prior to that, an Aesop fable from Walt Belcher, who talked about, how if you try to please everyone, you're going to lose your donkey, apparently. So, and prior to that, we had Judy Tarowski, who the crafty dog with great vocal animal sounds. Judy, those were very popular. Got some comments about great dog on YouTube. So thank you. Prior to that, Linda Yamoto, and it was a story about the nail, and somebody asked, what did they do with the dead cow? There was a little, you just left us hanging. What did they do with that cow? And before Linda, Claire Nelson with an Anansi Crick Crack. That was a great story. It was very energetic. Love the background. Wonderful, wonderful. So glad you were with us. Prior to that, we had Sarah Armstrong. And with the story about the persimmon, a Korean tale about the fruit that nobody can tell apart from a pomegranate, or maybe that's just me. And first kicking it off, and she did a great job. It's always hard to be the first one up, but she came out with, she had it going. Gwendolyn, so glad you were with us, with the gingerbread man, who was only slightly more energetic than Gwendolyn was when she told that story. That was very energetic, both of you. So thank you so very, very much. Stick around, storytellers. I am going to bring up my co-producer, Claire Hennessy. She's going to talk just briefly about a couple of the shows that we had. There she is coming up. And hello, Claire, how are you? You're muted. Claire, you're muted. Nope. Can we hear
I
you?
can't believe I'm still
there you
doing this after
I
3
know.
solid years of doing this, stupid girl. So I'm just
Exactly.
saying, I loved it. And for me, it was perfect because Regina did all the work. I've been sitting back enjoying everybody's stories. It's been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. So coming up. Now, at the end of the month, we're having a story on a Saturday, the 28th of January, because Ed Stivender and Angela Lloyd are taking over 6 Feet Apart. And they're doing at Jonesborough, the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesborough, every year for years and years and years, decades, they say. That's how old they are. You'd never know it. They've been doing a fringe show. And I actually had the honour of performing at it when I went to Jonesborough this year. So it was very exciting. And we've got some of their fringe favourites. We've got Adriel Lepp, who is Bill Lepp's son. And we've got Doug Elliott and his son playing, and they'll come on and play a song. Well, they might not play a song, actually. He's going to tell a lovely story. Barbara Freeman and also the fabulous Sam Payne. So they'll come on. There's also the Pokingbrook Morris dancers. There'll be a bit of Morris dancing going on. Ed and Angela are going to be telling stories, and there'll be hijinks around that as well. So come along and watch that, because that's going to be so much fun. And then after that, we've got the second Wednesday of every month, we have our personal narrative storytelling open mic story slam. And what we're doing is we've got a stellar story slam happening on the February the 8th, which is where all the winners from the open mic slams will come on and they'll compete for the overall stellar championship. And whoever gets it gets an actual trophy. So, it'd be exciting. So come along, vote. You get to vote in your top 2 stories. We've got Shweta Bat, who was our guest teller, who won in the 2022 crown, and then we've got to work out who's going to win the 2023 crown. So come along, vote, be part of the audience. It's going to be a fun evening, and we often have lots of other stuff going on. So that's it for now. We have other shows obviously coming up in the year, and we'll come back to you with that. So over to you, Regina.
All right. Thank you very much, Claire, for wrapping that up. Yeah, the courthouse steps, we have no idea what Ed and Angela are up to. They're pretty much just taking over our show, and we're letting them. So no idea what those crazy people are going to come up with dancing and music, and who knows? We'll see how it goes. It's going to be fabulous, whatever they produce. And of course, the Stellar Slam. So thank you, Claire. And let's take another shot of our storytellers, our wonderful, wonderful cast for tonight. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you to our YouTube audience. Wonderful to have you with us.
Have a bit of an after party, so with our storytellers, but hopefully you will have a glass of wine or 2 or beer at home.
Yes, on your couch. Stick around, storytellers. We love to chat just a little bit, but thank you very much, everyone. Drive safe. Go to our website, sfapshows.com, or subscribe to YouTube. You can find us in a lot of different places. So thank you very much, and good night.
Bye.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.